All right, continuing around the NBA, we're moving on to a team that a lot of you, I was surprised how many of you said the most interesting team for you in the NBA is the Charlotte Hornets. Joining me now, Walker Mehl from the Locked On Hornets podcast. And I'm Nick Angstadt. You will probably be able to tell the difference in the quality and candor of our voice because Walker Mehl, one of the best voices on the network. What you got for me,
Oh,
Walker?
man, you're too kind. You're way too kind. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. And the Hornets finally have something to look forward to in the future. And so, I could see why there'd be plenty of buzz, if you will, surrounding the team.
There's definitely like everybody's going to put them as their league pass team, right? It seems like if you're like, oh, who's the best league pass team? The Hornets are going to be up there for a lot of people, it seems like.
Yeah, it certainly was the case last year. I mean, there were countless national NBA pundits saying the Charlotte Hornets were that team. I think George Sedano said that about the Charlotte Hornets. Stephen A. Smith dubbed Miles Bridges the best in-game dunker. If you get Stephen A. on your side, you're going to get a lot of attention. And so the Charlotte Hornets, they kind of arrived in that area, the National League Pass team of the association. Now we just got to get a few more wins in that win-loss column, and we'll see if that can take place this season.
When's the last time Stephen A. Smith named the Charlotte Hornets full name at all?
Probably talking about Michael Jordan. It had to be an MJ reference. Probably going back to his Carolina college basketball playing days. Probably on par with MJ if Stephen A. Smith has anything to say about it.
All right, let's get into these Charlotte Hornets. What surprised you? Everything around LaMelo Ball seemed to be, just the best thing for this team right now. Just the injection of a player that has that type of ceiling. But, people have watched him for so long. I've seen him since middle school, basically. Seen his entire life almost play out on Facebook in front of our eyes. What surprised you the most about LaMelo? On the court, you can say some stuff off the court, too, if there is something. But what surprised you most about watching him day in and day out and seeing him every game?
Well, I think the number one thing I was worried about as far as his game goes heading into the NBA immediately was the shooting. It's what scared me. I still loved the pick when they made it. I was kind of a trade down guy at the time, as long as the right opportunity would present itself. Thank God the right opportunity, at least in my eyes, didn't present itself because clearly LaMelo is the only selection there. He's been amazing, but it's been the shooting that I was scared of. The form, it's odd. Didn't put up great percentages, really playing overseas either. And finishing at the rim, the numbers weren't good for LaMelo either, but it was really the shooting from the outside. And before that injury, I think he was at 39%. Then he comes back and still is hovering around 35%. But really before he fractured the wrist, he was not only shooting the ball at an average rate, just a fine enough rate, but actually pretty good at shooting from deep. And I think that's the number one surprising thing. Even the LaMelo Ball truthers that were all in on him being number one overall, there were plenty of people out there that wanted him to be the number one overall prospect. Nobody could have seen this type of play in general, but also just the shooting and how it happened. I think that's got to be the biggest takeaway as far as the surprise goes. And
a great surprise, though, right? That's the one thing really that was holding him back, and it had to be okay, good. He can shoot. We kind of had that with Luka, where the first year he was shooting 31%, 33%, and then he bumped it up to 35%. We're like, okay, he'd shoot efficiently, right? Finally, you're like, okay, the one thing that may hold him back is not going to be too bad.
Well, it's one of the most important aspects, right? Especially from anybody in the backcourt. You want them to have that kind of ability. And even when you have someone facilitate at an elite level as soon as they stepped onto the NBA court, which we all kind of assumed, maybe we were expecting more turnovers, and he had a decent amount of those last year, which is expected. But even at that kind of level, facilitating the basketball, you want the shooting to be there. And last year it was. If we talk about what can remain the same, what can sustain itself, the shooting is something I am going to have my eye on, I imagine, like a lot of people are. Can he still remain above 36% shooting the entire year like he was before the injury? If he does that again, then you got to feel good about the way that he can continue to progress moving forward.
Speaking of progression, what is LaMelo's ceiling? Where do you think he tops out? What do you think is the limit for him? Or is there a limit for a guy like LaMelo?
Well, superstar is there, and it's the first time. Look, the Hornets haven't had this type of player in forever. LJ and Alonzo Mourning, that's the two guys we constantly go back to. Those were the glory days of the Charlotte Hornets. In 2001, we had Baron Davis, Jamahl Mashburn, got to the second round of the playoffs, close to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then eventually lose to the Milwaukee Bucks. Those were our most hopeful moments. LaMelo being drafted has now given this team, this community, a new sense of hope. And I think LaMelo having that superstar potential is the reason for that. We love Kemba Walker here. He is the best player in organizational history as far as longevity, producing, all-star appearances. Kemba Walker checks those boxes off, but he never checked the superstar level, right? Like this is somebody that's a really good player, got to, I think, 3 consecutive all-star appearances, and they were all well-deserved. But he didn't have the ceiling that LaMelo has. The guy has, the guy has an unlimited amount of potential, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see where he can take it, continuing to improve defensively, just being more disciplined on that end of the floor. We talked about the shooting. You're hoping, I wonder what kind of scorer he can be. Like, that's something I'm interested in. Is he going to be a 25 a game guy? Like, maybe not, but can he be, I don't know, 22, over 20, and continue to facilitate at a high level, rebounding really well for a point guard because how tall he is. He can fill the stat sheet for sure, just like he did last year.
Finish the sentence for me about the Hornets. The Hornets season depends on what?
Internal improvement. I think you saw the Hornets not as active as I thought they would be in free agency as far as the big-time additions, right? They gave Terry Rozier a lot of money on this contract extension. They brought in Kelly Oubre, but the second year is not even fully guaranteed. So he could possibly not be here with this team all that long. Mason Plumlee, same thing. It seemed like Mitch Kupchak wanted more cap flexibility than to bring in somebody that you could see being here long term. So what it means is that, okay, Kelly could provide something nice for this team. Mason, I was hoping would be a backup center. Probably is going to they're probably going to rely a lot on PJ Washington at the center spot again, but Mason, will do the starting thing, play less minutes than PJ. Bottom line is that if PJ can significantly improve, along with the Miles Bridges, and of course along with LaMelo continuing to go up the escalator into stardom, then that's going to be a huge deal for the Charlotte Hornets team. They didn't go after a Rashawn Holmes to fix their center problem, right? They didn't do that. They didn't go after anybody else that was an outside factor as far as how they could improve going into next year. It's all of these young guys that are going to have to take a step up if the Hornets really want to, one, just get into the playoffs outright and avoid the play-in tournament, and even cause some damage once they get to the playoffs.
Bonus one in here for you that I just thought of. What happened in that play-in, and what do you take away from that play-in game? Because it was just like an absolute... It was an absolute rout. Like, you go back, we were talking about it on Locked On NBA recently, and you just go look at LaMelo's numbers in that game, and you're like, all right, maybe we just throw this game out. It doesn't mean anything. Or did it give him a little of experience? Like, what do you take away from that game?
Oh, I think it gave him experience. I think that is valuable. It was hard to tell me that at the time because the thing is, the play-in tournament wasn't even the only game, right? Like, the last 10 games or so, they were awful. I mean, the Hornets were losing games left and right, and they didn't look even near the basketball team that they were when they actually snuck into the 4 spot before some of the injuries started to take them out. But the injuries really did hurt this basketball team. Gordon Hayward, of course, we thought he was going to come back at some point, never did. LaMelo came back surprisingly so to play the last 10 games of the season. Malik Monk was a big part of this offense last year, and Malik Monk missing a lot of time. He comes back, plays the last 10 games, but LaMelo and Malik didn't put up great efficiency numbers once they were back from their injuries. And again, no Gordon. Mind you, this is also with Miles Bridges having been out for some time because of COVID-19 protocol. So I think the play-in game was like maybe his 3rd, 4th game back. I think you throw it out the window. The Hornets were playing awfully so at the end of the regular season that went into the play-in game, plus all of the injuries. It's not like I expect them to, play anything close to that going into next season. But yeah, it was certainly a disappointing finish to a season that had a lot of hope, but certainly in the middle of it.
Yeah, I forgot about the last 5 games. Lost to the Pelicans, lost to the Nuggets, lost to the Clippers, lost at the Knicks, lost at the Wizards, and then that terrible loss. That was a brutal end of the season.
We know, Nick. Thank you.
Well, okay. we're on Locked On Mavs. I don't know if everybody on here knows that.
Thank you for that. No, it was bad, and I don't think any Hornet fan will tell you any different.
Last one for you. Who's the most overlooked Hornet? I hear a lot about LaMelo. Miles Bridges apparently got the mention from Stephen A. Smith, so maybe he's not the most overlooked. But who's the guy that people are just not talking about enough?
I've seen some of the redraft stuff, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know how much of this is being carried by anybody with a whole lot of substance, right? Or if it's just some content being thrown out there.
Yeah,
But
we've done it.
Same. Look,
Yeah.
we are here for the content.
Yeah, right.
Unapologetically so. But when we talk about guys like the PJ Washington draft, for example, good player, I think. Last year had a down year, wasn't hitting from 2-point range like he did the year prior. But if you look at his 2 seasons in the NBA, really good shooter from deep, played a lot of center. And Nick, I thought defensively he was our best defensive center. And Cody Zeller, that's always something. Cody Zeller isn't great defending the post, but can move. I'm a Cody Zeller fan, so I we'll see what he does with Portland. But PJ shows some ability to protect the rim. If you look at his block numbers, being like 6'8", 6'9", barely, not even 6'9", that's probably giving him way too much height. PJ was among the top 20 guys in blocks per game, if I'm not mistaken. The block percentage for PJ Washington was pretty good as well when he played that 5 spot. That's something a lot of other teams don't have when they go to small ball, right? Like, especially even when you have Miles Bridges able to protect the rim, also being a guy that can come in and help if a PJ is stretched a little far away from the basket. I think PJ Washington, Locked On Hornets listeners know my love for PJ. I just think if he fixes the bunnies that he missed at the goal last year, I think that's going to help. I think he will improve in that area. The 3-point percentage, it's real. It's legit. I mean, he shot well the last 2 seasons. And defensively, I think he's a real problem for other teams, especially when the Hornets are so lethal offensively going to small ball. I think PJ is overlooked. I think he's a guy that will improve going into next year. And just real quickly, you mentioned Miles. As I hope that he can stay consistent on the new increased volume going into next year. He showed he could do it the last month of the season. I hope that he can do that again coming into the year and kind of play it out with a 82-game season.
We went this whole time without even mentioning my co-host's favorite player on the Hornets, Terry Rozier. I feel like every other week he was coming up with some kind of scenario. Okay, could they make a 3-team trade and Terry Rozier ends up in the Mavs? So
were you trying to give us Porzingis? Is that what you were trying to do?
Oh, he was trying to give you everybody. He's like,
okay.
Anybody we can send. Isaac just wanted Terry Rozier, but a lot of great players to watch in Charlotte right now. Terry Rozier mentioned. We didn't even mention Book Knight, who got drafted there. That's going to be an interesting player to watch. So great stuff over in Charlotte. Go listen to Locked On Hornets. Walker Mehl, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Had a good time.